All right, class, settle in. Let's get started. Today, we're diving into a massive question. Maybe one of the biggest. What exactly holds society together? What are these invisible rules, these forces that shape everything from a simple handshake all the way to the rise and fall of nations?
So, I want you to think of society as this enormous, incredibly complex building project. Now, for any project like that to work, you need a blueprint, right? Well, in sociology, we call that blueprint culture. It's the shared design that basically guides how we live, what we think is important, and how we deal with each other.
Now this is the most important part to get. Culture isn't something you're born with. Not at all. It's something we learn. It's this giant collection of knowledge, experiences, and values that a group gathers over time and then passes on. You can think of it as society's memory, or the shared software that tells us how to navigate our world.
And this blueprint, our culture, really has two main parts. On one side, you've got material culture. That's the tangible stuff, the physical things we make. It's everything from our phones and our houses to the clothes we wear. Then, on the other side, you have non-material culture. This is all the abstract stuff, our language, our laws, our family structures, our beliefs. It's the physical versus the conceptual.
Okay, so if culture is the blueprint, what brings it to life? That's where social interaction comes in. It's the engine. It's the process where we're constantly acting and reacting to one another. Every single conversation, every little transaction, even just a look, that's all part of this engine that's constantly building and rebuilding our social reality.
And this is a perfect example of just how nonstop it is. You know, social interaction isn't just about big formal meetings or parties. It's happening constantly, all around us. A quick chat with a friend, making eye contact with a stranger on the bus. These are all these little micro-interactions that are actually powering the whole social machine.
But, what happens when that engine starts to sputter? This brings us to a really fascinating concept called cultural lag. This is basically a glitch in the system. It happens when our material culture, usually our technology, leaps forward way faster than our non-material culture, like our laws and our values can keep up.
To make this crystal clear, let's look at a classic case study, the world right after the automobile was invented. So, you have this incredible new piece of material technology, the car. But the non-material culture, things like traffic laws, speed limits, stop signs, even which side of the road to drive on, none of that existed yet. The roads were literally designed for horses. The result? Total chaos. That's cultural lag in action. And we see it everywhere today with things like AI or social media. The tech is just racing ahead, and our rules, our ethics, our laws, they're all scrambling to catch up.
So as we interact, this social engine of ours can really run in two basic directions. You have associative processes. These are the ones that are integrative, that bring people together. And then you have dissociative processes, the ones that are disjunctive, that pull people apart. Society is just this constant push and pull between these two huge forces.
All right, let's start on the positive side. Let's look at the tools we use to build connections, the associative processes that create social harmony.
The most basic building block here is cooperation. It's as simple as it sounds, people working together for a common goal. Whether it's a team at work, students on a group project, or a whole neighborhood cleaning up a park, cooperation is the fundamental process that makes any kind of collective achievement possible.
But what happens when we don't agree? That's where accommodation comes in. And what's so fascinating about this quote is that it gets right to the point. Accommodation isn't about liking each other, it's about figuring out a way to coexist and get things done, especially after a conflict. It's a process of social adjustment.
Think of accommodation as a kind of truce or a compromise. It's that critical middle ground between all-out conflict and total cooperation. And it can take a few different forms, like compromise, mediation, or arbitration. These are all essential social tools designed to put the brakes on conflict and keep things from falling apart.
So let's quickly break a few of these down. Compromise is when both sides give a little to meet in the middle. Arbitration is when you bring in a neutral third party to make a final, binding decision, kind of like a judge. And then there's toleration, which is basically what happens when two groups, maybe with opposing political views, just agree to disagree so they can avoid constant hostility. Now, if you zoom out over a much longer period of time, successful accommodation can eventually lead to something we call assimilation. This is that slow, gradual process where different cultural groups eventually start to blend together. And over generations, they become more and more similar.
Okay, so now let's flip the coin and look at the other side, the dissociative processes. These are the forces of division, struggle, and separation, and they are just as fundamental to the human experience as the forces of unity. First up is competition. This is what happens anytime the demand for something, whether it's jobs, good grades, status, whatever, is greater than the supply. It's a universal struggle, but the key here is that it's typically impersonal. Competitors don't usually want to hurt each other, they're just laser-focused on getting the prize for themselves.
Conflict, on the other hand, is much more personal, much more direct. Here, the goal isn't just to win something. The goal is to directly challenge, oppose, or even neutralize your opponent. It is a conscious, deliberate struggle against someone else.
This slide lays out the difference perfectly. Competition is usually an ongoing part of life that follows the rules. Conflict is personal. It can break the rules, and it often happens in bursts. Let me put it this way. Runners in a marathon are in competition. Boxers in a ring are in conflict. See the difference?
Now, it is so easy to see conflict as purely negative, right? And of course it can be. It can cause tremendous damage. But it has another side. Paradoxically, conflict can actually be a powerful engine for positive change. It can bring a group together, create this incredible sense of solidarity, and force a society to confront its own problems and redefine its values.
Just think about that for a second. Can you name a major historical movement, say the Civil Rights Movement or the fight for women's right to vote, where conflict wasn't the very thing that forced change and helped create a more just society? Conflict makes us deal with problems we might otherwise ignore.
And that really brings us to the big takeaway for today. A healthy, functioning society is not one where there's no conflict. That's a fantasy. A strong society is one that has developed the right tools, cooperation, accommodation, healthy competition, to constantly manage the inevitable conflicts that are always going to pop up. So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. In our modern, super-connected digital world, which force do you think is winning? Are our new technologies and ways of interacting pushing us toward more cooperation, or are they just accelerating conflict? That's something for you to think about. Class dismissed.